Swiss, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
I am really, really happy to have Dulio Arellano, founder and owner of Premier Swiss, on the show today. Welcome, Dulio.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I met Dulio, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago. We were doing something with Tornos Swiss, and somehow we got connected with him. Maybe he was working for Tornos at the time, but he was he was a fountain of information, and he's been a really interesting, important person to know. So I'm really glad that we got to reconnect on this. Um, so I want to talk about your company, and I want to get a little bit of background on you, how you got into this business. First, just give me a real brief summary of Premier Swiss and what you guys do.
Um, well, we're a machine shop, and it's a general machine shop. No, we don't produce a specific product.
Okay.
Uh, Sort of a contractor,
Like a job shop?
a job shop. Yeah. Mhm.
And you mainly run Tornos Swiss machines?
I only run Tornos right now. Yes.
All right. Because often people hear machine CNC machine shop and they think, Mazak or all kinds of
Late.
stuff.
Yeah. Mills, lathes. Yeah. It's strictly Swiss right now.
And which Tornos machines do you guys have?
Um, so I have the older generation, uh, the three different sizes, Deco 10, Deco 13, and Deco 20.
Okay. And you're talking like early 2000s, late 90s?
Early 2000s, yeah.
Okay. And now you've had quite a journey to lead you to starting this company. So I want to go through that. Are you from Chicago?
No. Um, I moved here about 5 years ago in the suburbs. I was living in Rockford, Illinois.
Okay.
Um, I would say since I was like 18.
And where were you born?
I was born in Mexico.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
And when did you come to the United States?
Um, It was 2001, I believe. 2000, 2001. I was 18 years old when I came here.
Okay, interesting. Uh, and so you came here. You had family here, or you came with some family? Um,
Um, my brother was here and my father was here
okay.
when I came here. My father, he was living mostly here since he was very young, and um, he wanted to bring us since we were kids, but going through the right process to come into the United States is a very long process. So we had to wait a long time, but it finally happened.
Yeah, probably harder now even. Uh, so then you were here. You got here when you were 18, and what did you do then when you got here for work or school or?
Um, I really wanted to go to school, but it was not possible right away.
Like to go to regular college, university.
Yeah, and then I took a few jobs that were temporary, nothing solid. When I was 20, I started working for this one company, which is one of the jobs I consider a solid job. Um, and I was there for 8 years until I got into CNC.
What was the job?
It's a company that makes pressure pipes, whether for water lines for a whole town or even for tunnels. Um, in fact, there is several tunnels in the Chicago area that we produce
Interesting.
those pipes for the tunnels.
So it was somewhat like technical, physical job, hands-on.
Yeah, it was more physical. It was more physical. I mean, there is machinery there, but there is no CNC machinery. It's more of a for example, there is machinery to roll the steel, produce the tube, and there is welders that weld it together to create the steel tube. And then from there, there is other processes where they put concrete
Hmm.
in molds. So it's a lot of physical work, yeah.
Okay. And then you had a shift in your profession. So tell everybody what happened next.
Yeah, my brother has always believed in education. He always wanted to go to college. He always wanted to get a degree. And he was always pushing me to do something, to take anything, to go to school. And I did took some classes prior to that, but there was more of a need. Obviously, when I came here, I didn't speak the language, so I had to learn English. So I took several courses here and there,
Mm-hmm.
um, but nothing to focus on getting a degree. Um, so when I was working there, I was comfortable. I was making decent money for my age. So I kind of put school to the side and just, uh,
You were content.
yeah, I was content with what I had. And he kept insisting. And he's the one that told me about CNC machines. He's the one that did the investigation and was showing me the machines. And
Well, what was he doing
he was also going to school.
for
But he was trying to, back then he was trying to get his associate's degree.
Mm-hmm.
So just general at that point.
All right.
But he was still going to school. We both held a full-time job where we were working 10 to 12 hours a day. It was
Oy.
normal. Yeah. Yeah.
So okay, so he says, Dulio, there's CNC, a place you can get some CNC education. Uh, you might want to try this, etc. And then what happened?
Yeah, he actually said that. He said it was a very interesting field, and I never did anything. And at one point, he just came into the house and said, I just signed you up for classes. You're gonna start this date. And I'm like, what? And literally, that's how it happened. I was like, okay, and I went to the classes, and that's how I started.
Now, a lot of you hear people are kind of divided on classes. Can you is a class the place to learn uh, machining, or is it just sort of like gives you the nitty gritty, and then you go work in a shop, and that's where you really learn? How important were your classes?
Well, I think there is more than that. First of all,
What school was it?
Rock Valley College,
Okay.
in Rockford. Um, those classes are not gonna give you everything you need to become, let's say, a machinist. A machinist, there's a lot to it to become a machinist. But at least if that's the field that you like, if you
Okay.
are interested in that kind of work, it gives you an idea on what it is. Um, at least I'm speaking of the classes that I took because they were the very basic operator classes. So once you take those classes, you become familiar with what a machine is and what a machine can do.
So
Uh,
like these were like manual lathes
there were
or
CNC Haas lathes and
CNC
mill.
hot lathes. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so after that, you did that how long? 2 years or?
It was two different courses of 6 months. So you had the choice of taking only lathes, which you would do the operator and setup course, 6 months, and then you would go into programming, which is another 6 months.
Okay.
I did both um, for both sections, so setup and operate, and then the other 6 months of programming.
And then after that, you went to work in a shop.
It didn't happen that fast, um, mainly because, as I said, at the job that I had, I was getting paid well,
Uh huh.
and going from getting paid well to becoming a beginner CNC operator, it's a lot of different. It the pay rate is it's completely different. But I started looking, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that uh, I liked that kind of work. I knew that it was something I wanted to do and I was going to do in the future. So from that point on, I said to myself, well, this is what I'm going to do. Now I have to figure out how I'm going to transition from where I'm at to that. And it took about year and a half before I got a job.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then where were you? Where were you working, and what kind of machines were you working on?
I went to work for a company after a year and a half, I believe. I went to work for a company in Delavan, Wisconsin,
Okay.
and it was a big Swiss shop. Still is.
What company?
Swiss Tech.
Swiss Tech. Okay.
Yeah, Swiss Tech.
Who?
Um,
Yeah. Who's the owner of that? Are they in the PMPA?
I'm not sure if they are.
Swiss Tech.
They used to be an owner to the company, and it was bought by a group of investors.
Okay. Okay.
So it's not an owner anymore. It's more of a group of investors that own the company.
Okay. And what were you working on? What kind of machines?
Um, for the first few months, I started running some lathes. I believe they were Hardage,
Mm-hmm.
and um, the type of parts that you load by hand, and then you run an operation, and then you flip it over. And um, but then there was a need for operators on the Swiss department, and I don't know, but to me, almost in every company, the Swiss department are like the cool guys of the company because it seems like they're just walking around from machine to machine. So everybody wants to go work there in a company.
You're saying like the machines are a little bit more automated and independent,
Yes, yes.
so you can run more at the same time or run lights out or
Yeah, yeah, and the work is not so much physical as an operator, that you have to load a part and then flip it over. Um, it just runs constantly, and you go check a part on one machine, you walk to the other machine, and have your coffee in between, and it's a little more laid back than
And what kind of
other
machines were they?
Hanwas.
Hanwhas. Okay.
Hmm.
We have a Hanwha we're trying to sell right now.
Yeah.
XD38.
Okay.
Um, and okay, so you were running the Tornos, and things were a little bit more interesting. And then where did you go from there? How long were you there?
I was there for about 3 years.
Okay.
Um, when I started working there, well, the whole time that I worked there, it was a weekend shift. Um, that's the only opening they had, and that's the only possible way for me to leave my previous job,
I
was to
see. So you were working both at the same
slowly.
time. Yeah.
Yes, I did that for 6 months, where I would work 7 days a week. Um, I actually took all my vacation time on Fridays to be able to uh, do that in my other job.
Wow.
And after 6 months, I had to make a decision. and I made the move, and I have never regretted.
Mm-hmm. So okay, so you moved, and then and you stayed there 3 years. But then what happened after that?
um, I think I was just hungry to learn more.
Did you become a setup person, a
No, I
programmer?
never did. I never did. I did. Well, let me rephrase that. I learned how to set up the machines. I never got the position as a setup person in the company. It
Okay.
was. It's difficult, and it is in every company. When you're an operator, um, there is only so many setups a company can have, and obviously,
Yeah,
setup
sure.
people make a lot more money than an operator. So it's every operator's goal to become a setup.
That
But
makes sense.
um, you can't push a company to make you a setup if there is no need for it. And sometimes companies decide that's enough, and if we have a need, we will give you the job because you can do it. But if we don't, and you get stuck as an operator for
That's
a
interesting.
period of time. Um, So I asked for the position. I wanted to become a setup person in that company, and it was denied. And I said, "Well, I'm gonna start looking for something else." And
How did they react to that?
well, I did not express that to them. I just
Oh, okay.
I, I heard that um, I wasn't gonna get that position. I started planning my own route, and it didn't took long. I think after looking maybe a couple of months, I found another job and left Swisstech.
Okay. And then eventually you went to work for Tornos.
Yeah,
How did that happen?
well, I worked through a couple more shops after that, but um, the last shop that I worked at, it was a nice shop. It was nice people to work for and everything. I mean, the environment, they had new machines as well. Um, but I felt like again I was stuck. I wanted to be able to do more. I wanted to be able to learn more, and it just got to the point where um, I don't blame them because they're not going to open a position used to satisfy what I want.
Mm.
So at that point, I was not looking for a job actively, but I was considering um, another role. Um, and it happened to be 2014 IMTS, and um, I opened an account with LinkedIn, and I started connecting with people that I knew.
Oh, with LinkedIn. Okay.
Hmm. And I received a request to connect from back then the president of Tornos, and from there we started a conversation.
That's
And
so interesting that the president of Tornos would want to connect with an operator of a Swiss company. Did you find that strange?
I did. I think at the beginning I could not believe it. But I mean, it was true. He was the president of Tornos, and at first I was like, this can't be. And I think at that point, Tornos had a really big need to hire
Was it an
people.
American president?
Yes, he was.
Okay.
Um, and we met. I went for an interview to Tornos. I talked to their service manager, um, and I mean, right there and then, I had a job at Tornos.
Interesting. And so they trained you on the Tornos machines because you before that you hadn't done Tornos, right?
No, no. I some shops that I work at they had Tornos, but it was never a machine that I worked on. I had no experience,
What?
so there is not much of a training program per se. It was kind of learn as you go.
Mm-hmm. You just
Uh,
like shadowed another tech.
yeah, yeah. Actually, for my first project, because they didn't have a technician in Chicago. They had an office, um, but they didn't have a technician to report to that office. They have salespeople. They had the president was there, but and spare parts personnel. But I was the first technician that at that time that was actually working out of the office.
Interesting.
And I came in more of a technician slash applications because mainly what I knew was the programming of the machines and setting up the machines and I was familiar with the tooling at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I start, I didn't know much about repairing the machine system, at that time. So the first project they gave me was um, there was an issue with the part that had already been set up at the customer, and the technician there was having issues proving out a certain process. So they gave me a machine. Um, they gave me an introduction to that machine.
What
For
machine was it?
it was an ST26.
Okay.
Yeah, you're familiar with them.
Sorta. I mean,
Yeah,
you're really familiar with them. I've sold one.
yeah. Well, I wasn't familiar with them at all at that time, and like I said, I got a 2 or 3 days uh, training on it. But at the end of the day, I mean, the programming is the programming.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you just need to know the software that you use for it and the slight difference between the codes between machines.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
after,
before that, you had done like a Deco 26, and you had to kind of go over to that one, or
um, no, that in reality, when I started Tornos, that was the first machine I worked
oh,
at.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And
So for those that aren't familiar with all the Swiss models of Tornos, would you say like, I mean, the ST26 is the version made in China,
yeah,
but it's still a good machine. So, but I mean, it's kind of like the, is it like the Honda to the Acura, that kind of thing?
yeah, yeah, I would say. Um, it's the lower cost machine that Tornos has to offer.
Which is still pretty expensive.
It's still pretty expensive, as in particular that model, uh, due to the capabilities of the machine.
Uh huh.
Yeah,
Okay, so they put you to work on this ST26 that was having problems.
yeah. So I worked on that project for a week, and then I got it solved. I sent all the um, programs and information to the technician who was in the field, and from there I started, working with other people. Just pretty much shadow them and learning. Um,
What was wrong with the machine?
there was a broach process, and they were having difficulty broaching stainless steel. So uh, they didn't have much time to experiment at the customer. So they kind of stopped that part and went to another one. And um, we kept working at the office to prove out the process, and then After we proved that out, we sent the information to them, and then they went back and set up the part. So it's mainly the issue was mainly tooling more
Mm-hmm.
than um, the machine not being able to do it.
Well, how do you like being a fixer of machines versus running the machines?
Um, I enjoy both. I mean, um, to me, fixing the machines, I don't believe it's as difficult as proving out a part, for example. Fixing a machine, to me, it's I mean, especially nowadays, you don't actually go there and open the motor and repair the motor, and like old timers. It's pretty much like you take the old motor and you put a new one, and you know,
uh,
uh, reset your parameters for your reference, and you're good to go.
Interesting.
Um, at certain level, I mean, it's more difficult than what it sounds. Depends on what motor you're changing, because some motors are very hard to get to.
Okay. Is the more difficult part then doing the control in the
I think
program or?
proving out a part, the difficult part is having the right tool, having the right process, the right approach to machine the part.
Okay.
Just because, um, especially if you have never done something similar, because there is no such a thing as well, this part is being done by many people, and there is an answer to it, and this is how you do it. These are the instructions to make this part. Um, you have to experiment with tooling.
Mm-hmm.
You have to approach the part in different ways to, um, not only make the part, but have the machine make part after part with the same quality,
Interesting.
cycle time that is required. That's the difficult part.
So, um, so then you were working for Tornos, and then after a while, you decided you were ready for the next stage of your career.
um, it was in the back of my head, um, throughout other throughout the times that I was working for other companies. It was always something I enjoyed doing. And when you work for a company, you don't necessarily do exactly everything you want to do the way you want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's what,
Did you ever get to be a setup person at one of those companies? Did you ever get to climb the ladder?
yeah, I did.
Okay.
The job I held before Tornos, I was setup slash programmer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so you didn't get to do it exactly the way you wanted to do it. Do you consider yourself somebody, who naturally, you want to be your own boss? You want that autonomy, that control. Is that deep down your personality?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Um, I just knew that I wanted to do it. I just knew that one day I would do it. And for many years, I would look at machines that were for sale, and I would just dream. Like, man, it'd be so cool to have one in my garage, or
Yeah.
like. But it's a lot more difficult than that. Once you start thinking about everything that it takes to run a shop, to actually, you know, have your own shop, it's a lot.
Yeah. So I mean, this is one of the main things I wanted to talk about. Uh, I'd say most of the people from job shops we've talked to, these are established places that have been there a while. Um, So what is the first step, or what was the first step for you to start a shop? First, you got to get the machine, or first you got to get the customer, or
Well, to me, the way it happened, and it wasn't meant to happen like that. But now that I go look back and think about it, it's the biggest part of it. When I went to any customers working at Tornos, I always um, wanted to leave giving a good reputation of my name.
mm-hmm.
I always wanted to make sure the customer was happy. I also wanted to create a relationship. I just didn't want to go there and do a
Mm.
job and leave. I made a lot of friends doing that job and people that I still talk to.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
so
you
that
so networking is one of your strengths.
exactly, yeah. So after I worked at Tornos for 4 and some years, um, I was happy at Tornos, but I knew in the back of my head I wanted to do that. At first, um, in one occasion, I walked into a company. I wasn't thinking of buying a machine there or anything. I just went there to do a job.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna do a programming class for a customer in Michigan that bought a new multi.
Okay.
And
Had you had experience now on the multi spindles from Tornos?
yeah, I did work a lot on the multis, especially in the late or the second 2 years of my time at Hornos.
Which
Uh,
ones? Which the multi Swiss or the?
the multi Swiss in particular, yeah. I did a project on the multi alpha, but it was one of the last ones that were sold, and then they had already the multi Swiss line.
Yeah.
So most of the projects that I did were a multi Swiss.
And you think that's a really good machine, right?
Yeah, I think so. Um, yeah, I really like that machine, and I still do. And
If you
I mean,
could, if you were to buy a multi spindle, would that be the one you'd buy?
uh, I would say so. Um, I know what the machine can do. I know a lot about the machine. I mean, ins and outs, repairs,
Mm-hmm.
you name it. Why would I buy anything else?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I remember talking about this with you before, and you had a lot of interesting insight. If you had to, I mean, the main multi spindles, you got the multi Swiss Tornos, not that not that popular in the U.S. As far as I know, but
Hmm.
always seems like a really good machine. Then you got Index and
Hmm.
the ZPS. Those are mainly and a little bit of Gildemeister. I mean, Index I feel like is and Shuta. But as far as the CNC multis go, it seems like Index is that's the most popular in the United States as far as I've seen. So, uh, why would one want a multi Swiss over an Index besides maybe price?
Um, I think it's got to do with the parts that you're trying to make. Um, the multi-Swiss is not made to make complex parts. It's more of a medium to medium complex.
Interesting.
Um, as the index, I believe you can do a lot more complex parts. You have,
The Tornos people would probably say, "Oh, we can run these complex parts."
yeah, maybe, but it's not like the multi-alpha. And
Not a very popular machine.
yeah, it's not like the multi-alpha. The multi-alpha had a lot more capability, but it was a big machine.
Yeah.
It was a lot of things that uh, came with that machine were I mean, if you have more capability, you have a more difficult machine to work with. And what the multi-Swiss is, um, you can accomplish the same part as the multi-alpha, but it's a lot faster and a lot easier to work with.
Mm-hmm.
So the parts that do apply to the multi-Swiss, I mean, it's it's not so much like a multi. Even setup time, um, it's much faster.
Would it be? It would be much faster than say setting up an index or.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Interesting. I mean, it's a totally different design, or
yeah, it is. I
somewhat
mean,
of a different design.
if you look at the door, I mean, you can walk right in. I mean, you can access any tool very easy, and that's what makes it very interesting. And when you talk about uh, machining parts, you're always fighting the downtime.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, before multi was always meant to be high volume. Um, and with this machine, it's not necessarily a machine for high volume uh,
Hmm. Yeah.
part because now you can set it up as fast as you can set up a normal Swiss lathe.
Really? You
Yeah,
can. It's that
yeah,
fast.
it is fast.
And a
Uh,
lot of that is because the tool zone is so easy to get to.
it's very easy to access
Right. It
to
seems a
change.
lot easier than the index. I mean, the index seems like it's gotten better, but
Right.
still, it's kind of crowded in there.
Right, yeah. And I mean the index, I don't get me wrong, I never work on an index. Just the way it looks, it seems to me like it's more of a the multi-alpha from Tornos,
Mm-hmm.
where you have the two doors on both sides. And I mean you can do more difficult parts, you can do a lot more complex parts,
Yeah.
but it is a more complex machine. You have less room to work with. So if you have a really long runner, uh, you know, maybe it's the better option.
Okay. But that is really interesting, and maybe with the newer automotive industry, maybe if everything becomes electric, and maybe the market for multi spindles is going to be to do faster changeovers, and if you're going to even use it at all.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I
Um,
mean, I think that there is just like there is a high volume parts. I think there is a medium volume parts that may be a little too much for having it on a single spindle,
mm-hmm.
and it's too little to have a multi because of the setup time. So you have to accommodate
Right,
more.
and Tornos doesn't have like a turning center, like they don't have like a twin turret type machine, do they?
No.
Right. So maybe this is kind of like their answer to that in a way. I don't know. Um,
Um,
Sort of an
I think
intermediate.
it's yeah, I think it's a combination of a Swiss machine and a multi-spindle because as you know, the Swiss machine runs in a guy bushing.
Uh huh.
So the bars is slide into the guy. Um, and the multi-Swiss, there is no guy bushing, but the spindle slides through the sleeve, so is the material moving back and forth. Um, on the typical multi, the material is just stationary. You feed out, and that's
Right.
um, your material there. So it's a little bit of a combination between a Swiss machine and a multi.
Right. No, it does seem very innovative. Um, all right. So here you are. You've done some good networking, and you. What was the first machine you bought?
I bought a Deco 10.
A Deco 10.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, I
And
wasn't planning on buying it. like I said, I walked into this customer to do some training, and the first thing he tells me is, after introducing himself, was uh, he hands me a USB drive and says, "I have a machine for sale. Do you know anybody that is interested?"
Interesting.
And I said, "Okay, I'll take a look and let you know." Um, I did my class. I went to the hotel. I opened up the pictures of the machine, and that's how it started. I mean, I came back to him and said, "Well, you know,
What do you want for it?
yeah, exactly." And
What
we
did he?
came
How
up to
much? How much did he want for it? Can you tell me?
a um, he didn't give me a price. I pretty much named the price. He asked me to make an offer.
Interesting. What did you offer for it? You don't have to tell me. I'm just curious. I
Um,
mean, this is what we do. So
yeah, well, if you think of Deco 10, and if you think of very rare price that you see in a used Deco 10, that's where it would be.
okay,
Um, yeah.
10 grand,
Um, low 20s.
low 20s. Okay, so very cool. So so you bought this machine and you were still working for Tornos, uh,
Yes.
and uh, then where did you go from there? Did you go in the back of your mind? I know somebody who might need a part done, or
No. Um, at that point, what came to my mind was to make educational videos. Uh,
interesting.
Start a channel on YouTube and make videos about programming the machine, make videos about how to program it, how to set up, how to give him tips on what to do with this, what to do with that.
Yeah, because
Uh,
there isn't that much on Swiss. It seems like it's a
no,
lot
there is
just
not.
normal Haas
Lately,
stuff. And
I've seen videos too, but there is not much.
so, did you do this? Did you start your YouTube channel?
No, I never got to that. Well, the first thing I did when I came back was where am I going to put it? Uh, I already bought this machine. Now I need to find a place to put it because I'm in the suburbs. I'm in an apartment, uh, and I mean, obviously, I need to find a place. And so I started looking for a place because I had already bought it, and
So the guy, one of the reasons the guy wanted to sell it was because he wanted it out of there.
not necessarily. I think he had it in a warehouse.
Oh,
It wasn't producing anymore. It was stored in a warehouse.
but you decided you wanted it near you. So then
Yeah.
what did you do?
Um, I ended up finding a place, um, very small. I think it was like 1,500 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
In the suburbs of Chicago, in the north suburbs.
yeah, yeah. It was in West Chicago.
Okay.
That, um, and initially, it's difficult to find per se a building in an industrial area.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of things that you have to go through to actually get a building. But so I was looking through Craigslist, and I saw a guy that was renting space to store your car.
Interesting.
So I drove there to talk to the guy, and I asked him how much he was charging per car. And he told me, well, it's $50 per month
Ah,
through the winter.
shrewd.
So I said, okay, how many cars can you fit in there? Well, I can fit five. How many you have? So I said, okay, five. That's 250. I told him, well, I'll give you 500 if you let me use the whole unit. And he said, that's yours.
Five hundred a month or 500 for the winter.
500 a month. He was charging $50 per car a month.
And it was a heated place.
It was a heated place, yeah.
That was very,
Uh,
very smart.
yeah. Well,
What did he say when you were like, actually, I don't have a car. I have this crazy machine that looks a little bit like a spaceship, and was he like,
yeah. He did ask me what I was going to do with it, and I tried to explain to him. But even after I explained to him, he didn't know what that was. He said, "Yeah, that's fine, whatever it is." I had a guy that was whatever. I had a guy that was welding there before, so he had all kinds of machinery in there. That's fine.
mm-hmm.
It wasn't a very clean unit either. I mean, um, it was dusty. It was not. Um,
But it did
uh,
the job.
it did the job, yeah, and I was happy with it. I mean, I was just happy to have a place to put my machine.
Sure, sure. Okay, so you get your machine in there, and then what happened?
um, the first thing I do is I install the machine, and um, it wasn't that easy because um, I'm used to working with a brand new machine that it's 10, 15 years newer.
Ah,
Uh,
okay.
Software is not the same. The way you have
Because in your
to,
old shops, you hadn't worked with an older
no,
Tornos. So
no,
all the Tornoses you had worked with were like the A machines and.
brand new. Yeah, brand
Ah,
new machines, brand new multis. You program and the control if you want to.
ah.
You got all the nice things, and so that's the first thing I have to figure out how to use it because
Was it
I know.
hard to sort of go back to the more rudimentary technology, or did you figure it out pretty fast?
No, I figured it out pretty fast. I think after I had the machine installed and running, um, it took me a day or two to figure out how to load the programs into it, how to, set my tooling, everything. It's mainly the loading of the program is what's different from the old ones to the new ones. Um, the layout of the tooling, it is almost the same. I mean, the newer ones have a little different things, but
Was it a 9 axis or a 7 axis?
it's a 9 axis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And all right, so you got a spot for the machine. You got the machine. You got
Yeah.
some networking, and then what happens?
Um, at first, I designed my own part to have something to make on the machine.
Interesting. So you didn't even have somebody. You didn't even have a job. You're just like, all right, this is the way to start. I'm going to build it.
Yes.
Very
Uh,
interesting.
I at first my thought was to make my own product and make those videos as I make my own product
Mm-hmm.
and go from there. Um, so the first I had a list of things that I created that I was gonna make. Um, out of the list, maybe there were like 10 parts, and I made maybe three.
All right. So what kind of part was it? Like what material? What was it complicated?
No, the first one was arrow tips for like archery.
Interesting. Okay.
Um, that one it's simple. I mean, it's a simple. It's not the complicated ones that have the knives, the open, and all of that stuff. It was just for practice. So I made some of those, and I was experimenting with block anodizing. I don't know, because you can't just sell them like that. You have to uh, do the block anodizing so they don't rust. And um, I was investigating where to send them to get them black anodized.
That's sort of interesting that your sample part you would decide to have to do a second op anodizing. You'd think you would have done something that you could just take off the machine, but this was a specific thing you wanted to make, huh?
Yeah, it was one of the simplest parts that I had in my list,
Mm-hmm.
and it was one of them that I saw. It was sold on eBay, and it was sold on other websites very easily. And
Ah.
mainly, all those that I saw on eBay were China made.
Mm-hmm.
So there, my marketing idea was US made. Um,
All
and
right. So
try,
the thought was that maybe you would sell them direct online.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. So it wasn't just like, hey, this is a part I made. This was like something you thought maybe you could sell.
Yeah.
So then what happened?
um, I, I was still working at Tornos, so I was visiting customers,
Mm-hmm.
and I got to this customer, and he was struggling finding some nozzles for coolant to direct the coolant to the tool, and
He was having trouble getting decent nozzles, you said?
just finding them. Period. Like he couldn't find a company that would make them. Um, and that was some for the Tornos machine, which had holders through another company.
Mm-hmm.
So these other companies in Germany, and he thought it would be more difficult to get them from over there. So he wanted to find a company in the U.S. that would make them. And
And you said
uh,
bingo.
bingo, I said, I'll make them for you. And he thought I was joking.
And he had Tornos machines himself, right?
Yeah, he had just bought two multis, and he had a multi prior to that, a multi Swiss.
Interesting. So this what he didn't have any regular like Swiss machines for small volume. He was into like big volume.
They had both. I think he's one of the biggest consumers of Tornos machines. They have, I would say, over 100 SAS machines.
Oh well, after we have this conversation, we're gonna have to. I'll have to ask you about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um. So how did so he thought you were joking, and this is somebody that already had a bunch of machines and expertise, and he hadn't really thought about it himself.
Yeah,
Why didn't he go? He did he go? Oh well, hey, I can make it here.
yeah, he could have, but all their machines are running production.
Mm-hmm.
Even though big shops, they have the capability. They're not gonna stop a machine and do this nozzle and you know.
How many did he need? 10?
He didn't really say. And the thing is that that's where I learned one of my first mistakes. Um, I didn't really made it clear to him, like I am actually gonna make him for you. Uh, let's talk about a price or anything. So I just got excited. I'm like, I'm just gonna show up with them on Monday, and hopefully he'll buy more. So I went home Friday.
So did you actually say, "Hey, just wait till next week. I will return." What exactly did you say?
Well, I think the whole conversation he took as I was playing with him, but I did say to him, I'll make some over the weekend and bring them to you on Monday. Yeah,
Did he
which I
know
mean,
that you owned a machine, or he just
yeah,
thought you were a tech from Tornos?
he knew that I own a machine, but I didn't think he knew that I could make it so fast.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you can very easily take that as a joke, like, yeah, you bring him on Monday. Um, but I did. I went home, and that Saturday I work all day in the machine, and Sunday all day in the machine, and show up on Monday with the nozzles already made. And to my surprise, the Friday after I left, he found a small company and he placed an order for, I believe it was like $2,500 worth of nozzles, and I was like, what?
All right.
And
So then, so what did he say to you?
um,
Thank
he
you, but
felt
no
bad.
thanks.
He felt bad, and he told me he offered to buy whatever I had made. Uh, but he also told me I just bought like $2,500 worth of nozzles.
Did he like the nozzles that you made?
Yeah, he did. I mean, they actually put one in the machine because I brought some samples, and I told him, you try this one to see if this is what you want. And this is the operator. The operator put it in the machine, and he was like, yeah, they fit perfect. Uh, and then the engineer kind of came down to the floor, and then he was like, oh, he brought some nozzles. And he was surprised. He was like, what?
Had you talked to the boss, or you were just talking to the engineer before you?
Um, I was just talking to the engineer.
Okay,
I mean, he's got the um,
the
he's got the
management authority kind of.
yeah, to buy, you know, that kind of stuff. So it wasn't a need for me to talk to anybody else. And he would have. I mean, I think if I would have made it clear to him, if I
Mm-hmm.
would seriously tell him, um, I'm serious. I'm gonna go home and I can make you some for Monday.
So what did
Uh,
you sell each part for?
um, I still have those parts in my cabinet. I never sold them.
Oh, you never sold them, but he
No.
said they would buy them.
Yeah, but I just didn't feel he would buy what I had
And
with
how
me.
many did you have?
I think I had like four or five.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you might as
Yeah,
well just
so
keep them. Yeah.
yeah. I told him, I should have told you. Um, I had made some, and I think I made like 50 maybe
It's a great
that I
story,
had.
though.
Yeah.
Did you
I
how were
mean,
you how did you feel at the time? Were you laughing? Were you like really pissed off?
I was a little upset at the beginning, but after that, I was like, uh, well, at least I learned something from here. You
Mm-hmm.
can't just assume that people understand you if you're not, uh, you
Clear.
know, clear with what you're doing and what you want. And that's what happened to me. I mean, um, I never was mad at them. I mean, uh, I was just not clear with them, and I still talk to the guy now. uh, but uh,
All right. So
I
this is when, like 2014, 2015.
no, this was in 2017,
Okay.
mid 17, somewhere there.
All right. So not very long ago. All right. So then you're like back to the drawing board. And what happened
Yeah,
next?
yeah. I went back to um trying to come up with new parts, and recently, like not recently, like soon after I came back, and that didn't go through. I didn't make a sale, and I didn't waste my time because I learned. There was a customer in the area in the Chicago suburbs that often call me, and I'm the type of person that when I was working at Tornos, it doesn't matter if it was 8 o'clock at night, if it was Saturday. People would call me, and I would try to help if I was able to talk on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And he called me, and I helped him out, and he sounded very stressed out. So I asked, you sound like things are not going well. And he told me, well, um, this is just too much work for what we can handle.
Mm.
And I said to him, well, I have a machine. And he said, you do? I'm like, yeah. What size? And, you know, I explained to him what I had. And he said, oh, let me send you some parts. And you can take a look at them and you can code them. Um, and that's how
Wow.
everything started. It wasn't like I was looking for it at that point.
Mm-hmm. But your
And
network is
yeah.
what.
hmm And
So so then you made some parts um and then do you have other customers after that now? Or is he mainly your client?
he's mainly my main customer right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can go through or go to many customers if you're not if you don't have a bigger shop. I mean, with two or three machines, um, I mean, you're not gonna satisfy.
So since then you've bought some more machines, yeah?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because
Well, I just,
you needed them to make parts for him?
yeah, mainly for me, in order to leave Tornos, one machine wasn't gonna be enough.
Mm-hmm.
So um, before I made the decision, because they kept asking me if I would consider doing it full time, because
You weren't working for Tornos full time?
I was. So the story is that I started making parts for them on what was it, 2018, around April, and I was still working for Tornos, and I was making parts for them as a part time. So um, I would work in the office, and from the office go to the shop, and then run parts until like 11, and then leave the machine running for another 2 hours by itself. And um, Saturdays I would be at the shop every day. Sundays I would be at the shop every day.
You're not lazy.
Yeah. Um, but I was happy to do it. I mean, it's one thing I always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And after, I think it was like 6 months, uh, I purchased another machine and I sat down with um, the company, the owners of the company, and we got in, an agreement. And they pretty much gave me a whole book of business for both machines.
The same customer.
Yeah, the same customer.
Very cool. So right now you have one customer that's given you a good book of business.
Yeah, yeah.
And what's next? How do you plan to, or is your hands are just full already?
Um, well, right now, there is always short-term goals and there's always long-term goals. Um, right now, the building I'm at, it's already full.
So
Um,
you moved from the 5 car garage.
yeah, I did. Last year in October, when I left Tornos, um, I moved into a 4,000 square foot building. Is where
Okay.
I'm at, and I will be here for the next 2 years.
How old are you?
I'm 37.
37.
hmm Yeah,
Good age.
yeah,
I'm almost 40. God help me.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, right now, I think I'm just gonna uh, lay back and keep running the machines that I have right now, and we'll see how the future looks like.
Yeah. Um, and you feel like your skills are improving as time's going on, or
Um,
and you have no employees. It's just you, correct?
no, I do have one employee.
You have one
Um,
employee, and
yeah,
he's what's his title?
he's an operator.
Okay.
Yeah, but he's learning. I try to teach him as much as I can.
How did you find him?
Um, I put an ad on different places. Um, Indeed, I think
Mm-hmm.
was one, and I think he came from the ad on Indeed. Um, it was um, it was kind of funny the way it happened because he showed up to the office without calling or anything, and I was like, yeah, and
And was he the only person that contacted you back?
no, I interviewed a few people that came, but um, most of them didn't have any experience at all.
Mm-hmm. And this guy
Or
had a little bit.
yeah, he actually knew Tornos machines.
Did
Um,
did part of you want somebody that you know came in with a blank slate and you could just train them exactly how you wanted?
um, yeah, that was my idea when I first started.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to have somebody that knew enough to check parts and stuff, but didn't know anything relation to the machine. Like I wanted to teach him the way I know. Um,
That's what most people say.
yeah, a lot of people you bring with experience, they already have their own ideas on what has to be in which way, and and then you can start getting into conflicts.
Yeah, yeah. I could totally see that, and as somebody who you know hasn't had their own company before and hasn't been around a while, you might have somebody who thinks that they know better or whatever. So, um, but this guy came, he knew a little bit, knew the right amount, and then you were able to train him. That's sounds good.
Yeah, yeah.
And what are you most excited about in 2020?
2020. Well, 2018 was more of an investing year,
Mm-hmm.
um, and 2020 it seems to me more of a lay back and organize things.
Yeah.
Um, I do plan to get a ISO in place.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
How
so
is that pretty difficult to get an ISO?
um, it's not difficult, but um, all depends. I think for me it won't be difficult because I'm used to starring, and since I started, uh, I do everything that ISO requires.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just matter of getting um, audited and getting certified.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you all the best. Um, and if anybody out there is looking for somebody to make some Tornos parts, um, talk to us or Google Premier Swiss. Do you have a website or?
It's in work in progress right now. It's getting built, but
Oh,
it's not up yet. Yeah.
yeah. Uh, and yeah, I wish you all the best of luck. You've got a very interesting story, and it's really interesting to see people getting started. Um, do you feel like this is the land of opportunity?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. If you do want to do something, it is. Um, the opportunities are there. It's just matter of working hard for them
Yeah.
and going after them. Yeah. And I think there's there is a lot of opportunities. Um,
I think so. In this business, you are, an example of it. So, I thank you for being on the podcast, and it was really good to get to talk to you in more depth.
yeah, thank you.